committee meeting. Today is August 14th, 2017. We'll call this to order at 7:33 p.m. Clerk, can you read the roll call, please?
Sure. Trustee McGreal?
Here.
Trustee Dalzell?
Here.
Trustee Pierce?
Here.
Trustee Zielinski?
Here.
Trustee Juarez?
Here.
Trustee McLaughlin?
Here.
Mayor Ryan?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Can you join us for a Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so tonight's a committee meeting. We'll have officer reports, starting with myself. On your agenda, we had the announcement of the village-wide garage sale. This year it's going to be from September 15th, 16th, and 17th. This is the once-a-year opportunity that we give to our community to feature their goods and to be displayed without permit. And I will have the attorney, we always have them double-check, but sometimes we will pass an ordinance just approving those dates to waive any fees for that particular weekend then, too. So that'll be pending, forthcoming, I should say. Second on the agenda was trustees. I spoke to a few. I'm sorry if I hadn't spoke to all, but I'd like to make the recommendation that we amend our meeting schedule to reflect just the first and third Mondays of each month as board meetings and the second Monday every month for a committee meeting. For the record, right now, it's the first and third Mondays that we do for board meetings, the second and last Mondays of the month that we use for committee meetings. I wanted the board to consider this as a consolidation effort. While we do have a few things that we bring up at all committee meetings, as we will this evening, the committee meetings where we have an opportunity to bring up a subject, talk about its content, and obviously be informed enough to make a vote next week, like at a board meeting. But the other aspect of this, too, is I think it's always important to consolidate your time. You know, if we can do this in one committee meeting a month as opposed to two, I think it's always in the best interest of our time and our department heads' times as well, too, because we have to bring all these department heads in as well as the clerk's office for these meetings. We can always save that last Monday of the month should we need it for a committee meeting or a special meeting for any matter then, too, but at next week's board meeting, I'll have this on the agenda. I'd like to ask the board to consider consolidating the committees, as I said here, just the 3 meetings a month as opposed to 4. Any questions for right now? No? Okay. Thanks. Next. Number 3 on the list was the formal appointment of Odelson and Stirk as Village of Alsip hearing officer. Currently, Luke Keller is our representative. I did want to make a point, and one of the trustees sent me a question this afternoon, which I was happy to look into as well. Right now, Odelson, we have the Kankar Law Firm represents us as our village attorney, and then they are our village prosecutor whenever we have cases called at the Bridgeview Courthouse. So we're not monopolizing that entire system. I felt it better to bring in 2 legal law firms, one to oversee it at the courthouse, another here is our municipal court hearing officer as well. So that's where Odelson and Stirk come into play. Right now, Odelson and Stirk are billing us at $185 an hour for professional legal fees. And prior to this, well, let's just put it this way, $185 an hour. In May, we were billed $971. June, we were billed 832 hours. And I spoke to their office today. The July bill is going to be about the same, about $800. Previous to this, when we had Mr. Weimer, and now we only utilize one person. Luke Keller is the hearing officer. Previous to this, we had a hearing officer, we had a prosecutor and a hearing officer here. And for both of their services, we were paying we were paying a retainer of $1,250 a month. So this is a savings of anywhere from $350 to $400 a month is what we're getting by using one person instead of 2. That's the best, because again, they were working on retainer. The previous firm was, whether they did an hour or 3 hours, they were getting the same pay, as opposed to billing hourly like we are right now. So this is a savings that we're doing at this point.
So what is the, then I'm assuming that the Kankar Law Group took on, more responsibilities. I'm assuming then that savings that you're talking about, Kankar Law Group is probably costing more than, was it Robin Schwartz or whoever the previous?
No, the previous firm, it was Jack Weimer and Michael Cromiker. Michael Cromiker was the last name. Chromiak, I apologize. It was Mike Chromiak and Jack Weimer. There were the two persons here before. Now we're only using one person, and we're saving money on those fees.
But you say, Mayor, that one was prosecutor and hearing officer.
Right.
And the Kankar Law Group is now taking on the role of prosecutor. So when you talk about these savings, let's just say for argument, out of that $1,250, it was $625 for each position. Is the Kankar Law Group, they're obviously costing us more. They're taking on that responsibility. They're not doing it for free. So, is it really a wash here, or is there really savings?
Oh, there's a savings. And this is Odelson and Stirk. This is not Kankar. Right.
As prosecutor.
There is no prosecutor anymore.
But you said when we have situations where we need somebody to, deal with situations at Bridgeview, that is the Kankar Law Group.
They're on retainer out there. Right.
Okay. But previously it was Weimer and this.
And Mike Chromiak, right. And we actually matched that price at the courthouse, because the way it was explained to me is sometimes whether you get done in 3 hours or it might take you all day out there, depending on how the cases are called, it's a retainer cost. And Kankar assumed the same rate that we were paying before as far as retainer goes at the courthouse. Where Odelson and Stir comes in, and that's what we're talking about here, is just our in-house court, and we do that twice a month.
Okay. I'm certainly not questioning it was myself that sent you the email. I'm not questioning the qualifications of Burton Odelson, of course.
Right.
For crying out loud, he argued before the Supreme Court. But could you put on paper over the next week just, the comparison of, what we've paid in the last...
Oh, sure. I actually did this today. So, no, I'll put this all in writing for everybody so you know exactly what you're approving. And this is coming at a discounted price. This is less money because we're only utilizing one person and not using two like they previously were. Some towns might need it, and actually most of the court calls, and I'll sit in here because I've been in here and this is the whole idea why I'm making these appointments as I go. I come in and I evaluate the hearing officer as well too. I sit in the back of the room and I watch how he handles cases, and we understand that sometimes a lot of these are all residents, and we need to be fair. We need to follow through with ordinances and so forth then too. It might be tall grass and it got cut, or it might be this and that and the other thing, red light cameras and whatnot. He does a good job. I watch how he's handled matters and stuff. He's been very fair with people. Occasionally he's had a few, like some teenagers, trespassing, squealing their tires out at the flea market when it's closed, and he's given them community service, and I thought it was a fair sentence to give him and so forth then too. So I'm satisfied with his behavior as a hearing officer, and that's why I wanted to make that recommendation. But as you said, Trustee, I have no problem putting that there. And one last question too was the same firm actually is hearing officer for 14 other villages. So as you said, Trustee Pierce, I would never challenge the credibility of a firm like Odelson and Stirk, but they are currently hearing officers at Bridgeview, Calumet City, Crestwood, Dalton, Elmwood Park, Evergreen Park, Morton Grove, Oak Lawn, Park Forest, Richmond Park, Sauk Village, Stickney, Summit, and University Park. So good to hear. And I don't have Luke's schedule, but he does quite a few of these as well then too. And I've also asked our police department about his process, and they're all satisfied with that as well too. Next.
Could I ask you one quick question, Mayor?
Sure.
And correct me if I missed this, but when we approved the Kankar Law Firm, I don't recall what their retainer is and what they're costing the village. Can you put that comparison on the list too,
Sure.
compared to Robin Schwartz?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
I believe, I'll double check that for costs like in-house and so,
Right.
for other services here. I believe they matched it. I don't, they did not increase it, that's for sure.
Okay.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
This position, is this, and I'm going back a few years, I remember reading an article in the Sun-Times, the Tribune, about this position. Is this a position that carries a police badge of some sort, or some sort of village badge?
We have not issued anything to the current hearing officer, but sometimes you do have situations where there are badges that are issued. That's a great question, and I can, actually with the clerk, we can certainly look into that and see if there was one issued to the previous
Don't believe so.
people. Okay, yeah, the clerk is saying she doesn't believe it was issued by us, but I remember, trustee, I remember reading that story about the previous
You know what
guy.
I'm talking about, right?
And yeah, there was somehow where he pulled a badge out, but I don't
Right.
think it had our name on it. We'll confirm that though.
And,
too,
and,
yeah.
and I mean, completely different, or on that topic, but when people are replaced or appointments, are made, I mean, what control do we have on these badges, of getting these badges back? And how do we go backwards in time and find out where all these, badges are? I know it's not I think I read somewhere that trustees used to get badges, and
They did.
what a ridiculous thing, in my opinion, that is. I don't know what I'd do with it, but, I mean, what's do you keep it as a memento?
No, you're supposed to, in fact, when I was fortunate to be elected as mayor, I returned my badge on my, on my first day back. And I gave him my badge and my keys to the village to be handed out to another trustee, because the former mayor gave me his key and whatnot. That I know of. There might be 2 badges that we are pursuing right now from former trustees that haven't returned them. Is that the case?
There's 2 that I know of that have not been returned. There is a clerk badge that has not been returned, and to the best of my knowledge, there is a mayor badge.
There's a
that
mayor
has
badge that has not been returned either. And unfortunately, we can certainly formally request those, which we have, but they have not been returned as of yet. So the clerk and I have been following that as well. Yes, in many villages, you do have to have credentials. As an elected official, you do represent the village, and you really should, not that you walk around with a badge on you. I'll be honest, I left mine in my briefcase all the time in the 6 years I was a trustee. But as an elected official of the village, you should have some sort of representation, more than a business card, to say I represent this village then too. It's all it is. It's just a credential, just a hard credential to say that you are. And trustee, I mean, you
I never got a badge.
Rick, you never got one, huh? You had to retire. You had your retired police badge, that kind of thing. But no, I had one, and like I said, it was in my briefcase for 6 years. Just as an elected official, and like I said, I turned it in when I started with this position here. So
I don't have a badge.
One of the things that we do we have the ability to do in the village is we do have a village-owned ID maker.
Mhm.
So that'd be one thing you might want to consider for other trustees, so they have an ID also.
Chief, that's a great idea.
Same thing, when they resign or retire, you take them back. If they retire, you take their badges back and you give them a retired badge.
That's a great idea, Chief, because I don't want to overplay this as well, too. And I've never read this as a prerequisite or requirement for having these offices as well, too. I'm just.
You saw the article I saw.
I did too, yeah. But I'm just speaking to what you asked about and what we've done in the past. And the former clerk did distribute badges to everybody with the exception of Mr. Dalzell, Trustee Dalzell. You got a big gold one there from being the chief and stuff, right? There you go. But anyway, thanks, Chief, for your suggestion, and I'll certainly I'll probably take you up on that.
I work with Brian. Brian Massari does a great job. He does all our badge. We just send him the information and picture. He creates the badge, so he'll create anyway, whatever ID, I should say, that you want to have, identifying everybody else and all that.
Something credit card size is always great. Thanks. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Number 4 on my agenda, on the agenda here, or my report, I did have the discussion for a need to hire a staff accountant 2. Trustees, I did put some information in everybody's mailbox. We had this discussion during budget talks, and I'll read this real quick, so for the benefit of the public, that I'm requesting that at next Monday's board meeting, that the board approve the hiring of a staff accountant 2 position, as we discussed multiple times in the budget process. Prior to our current finance director's hiring, Mr. Olivan, the treasurer and finance director positions were held by 2 individuals. So in 2013, unfortunately, the mayor fired the village treasurer at that time, and the finance department consolidated, and the position, and now the finance director is the both treasurer. He's assumed the duties as treasurer as well. Finance used to have an administrative assistant, which they no longer have. They're also down a position, obviously because they don't have it. Both the current finance director and the prior one asked multiple times for additional help. The previous board did approve in 2016 fiscal year's budget, and the current one, an opportunity for the finance department to hire a second accountant for upstairs. The finance director, Kent Olivan, has submitted a 7-page explanation of what is needed in that department. As Kent stated, the finance needs more resources and able to meet the increased demands on operations or filings will likely not be completed on time, possibly without that help. He made that same case last year. More importantly, in addition to the normal work that finance does, I need Ken to work on projects that he can't get done if he's focused on finance, the day-to-day operations. So basically, I just listed 5 opportunities here that are duties, I should say, that he's involved in right now. It's going to be addition to what he does. He's going to be the lead negotiator, which we gave him direction on last week regarding the Oakland dispatch conversion. He's likely to be one of 2 negotiators for all 3 labor contracts this next fiscal year. Number 3, we are losing potential investment returns by not having him design and set up an OPEB trust fund, and those lost opportunities puts more pressure on our residents. In other words, we're trying to come up with some financial strategies to help with the other post-employment benefits, retirement funds. We need to focus more on those. Those are projects above and beyond the day-to-day. We need to help resolve some management structure issues with the heritage apartments. The board's aware of that. We're going to talk about that soon in the next coming weeks. And I've asked them to work on helping us with strategic planning so we can prioritize the services that we should be offering, as I previously just mentioned. Finance needs that additional accountant to succeed. More importantly, the village and I need that additional resource to succeed. So I'm asking you to support my request to hire that budgeted accountant next week at the board meeting. I did give some, in the packet I put in everybody's mailbox, we gave some detailed reasons for hiring of a second person upstairs, along with a job description's been included, and the agenda cover memorandum from Monday. This is November 16th, 2015, when we originally submitted this request, and like I said, the previous board approved it. Trustees, everybody's been at the budget hearings, so everybody's aware of where I'm going with this, and obviously that's why I wanted to surmise what I had on here this evening then too. Again, for the benefit of the public, we've got a finance director upstairs, we've got a accounts receivable person that's full-time, we have a HR person that's full-time, and we have a part-time accounts payable person. So as far as staffing goes, it's a thin staff, in my opinion. And what always concerns me is practical application all the time. The last thing I'd ever want to see happen is just simply put, you can have somebody break a leg or somebody gets sick at home, whatever the case is, and he's out for 8 weeks. I really don't have a backup for him, and I need somebody in that position to help back up that post. All successful businesses always have a backup, and if the current accounts receivable person's already got a full plate, I hate to think I'm putting this on top of that person's plate. So I really want this considered at next week's board meeting, and certainly if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them, or if you want to get back to me during the week, that's fine too. Any questions right now? No?
No.
I did have a great meeting today with a real estate broker, and we're going to be getting an application submitted for the property over where McAllister is at. So I can't really elaborate on who it is right now, but that they are going to bring a notable business to that location, and happy to see that location get occupied real soon. So we'll be bringing that to the board as soon as we have more of that documentation that comes in too. I also had a notice here from, this is from the Greater Chicago Food Depository. We are invited for the 2017 elected official repack as part of Hunger Action Month. They are inviting us, our family and staff, to a special volunteer session to help them sort and repack food to their neighbors as needed. This will be Tuesday, September 19th from 1 till 3:30 p.m. at the Greater Chicago Food Depository, 4100 West Ann Laurie Place in Chicago. And I need to RSVP to these folks by September 12th. So trustees, please, if you're interested in volunteering for any of that, please let me know. And we'll make the time to go down and do our part to help the Greater Chicago Food Depository, okay? One of the last items on here, I did get some, typically we don't do this all the time, but it was a nice group. We're all familiar with the New Hope Church at 115th Street, 5100 West 115th. This coming Sunday, they have a Backpack Sunday at their 1045 service, and their pastor will pray a blessing over you and your child. Students should bring their backpacks. It's to help, again, kick off the school season for ages pre-kindergarten through 12th grade. And I spoke with Chris Mannheim right before the meeting, and we do have a handful of land agreements that we've made for our Pulaski Avenue TIF, and I am lining up some environmental companies to do environmental surveys and asbestos surveys to see if any of those buildings that we're looking to purchase need any additional environmental help. That's it for my report. Clerk Putzel?
Presentation of the minutes from the June 19th, 2017 board meeting. If you could review those and let me know if there's any changes. Also have the presentation of the FOIA report for July 2017. There were a total of 24 FOIAs. And lastly, the presentation of the IDOT motor fuel tax allotment for July 2017 in the amount of $44,558.79. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Next, public forum. Anyone wish to address the board this evening? Nobody? Thank you. Standing committees, Finance, Trustee McGlohorn.
I'll have a list of payroll and AP for next week. I also have a recommendation from Attorney Kankar in regards to the approval of a 6B application from Worth Steel and Machinery located at 4001 West 123rd Street. So I'd like that on the agenda for approval next week as well.
Thank you. This evening, Brian Liston's here representing Worth Steel with the owners of Worth Steel. Brian, do you want to take a minute and just explain what you're doing? Thank you. Yeah. When you get done, Brian, you just sign in if you talk, that's all.
You have to hold it really, really close.
They always record these, Brian. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Madam Clerk, Trustees, Chief. Brian Liston here on behalf of Worth Steel. I'm here tonight with Mr. Bender and his son Bob Bender, who've been a pillar of the community here in Alsip over 35 years. And Bob Bender is on the Alsip Industrial Commission and on the Board of Governors there. And tonight we're in front of you asking for what they call a SIR. It's called a Sustained Emergency Relief. It's similar to the 6B, but it is owner-occupied property, and we've met all the criteria regarding the qualifications in terms of 3 years of declining profits. The last 8 years have been difficult, but with the savings we will get, we're in need of a new roof. We're in need of some machinery. And currently we have 25 jobs there. Out of those 25, we have quite a few of them live here in Alsip, the town of Alsip. And we also believe with the savings we can get with the SIR, we could add another 7 to 10 jobs that all meet the Living Wage Act. And I think I want to give the microphone to Mr. Bender and tell him how long he's been in Alsip and what he's brought to Alsip along the way here. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Been in business 38 years. I wouldn't say the first 30 were easy, but the last 8 have been pretty difficult. And I've been in Alsip for 20 years and intend or hope to stay there another 20. I'm in the process of turning the company over to my son and son-in-law, and I hope it will continue for a long time. The last 8 years have been pretty difficult. Our volume is there, but our margins have shrunk like they have in most businesses. And our building is in need of repair. We need a roof, which is a major expense. And we've tried to put in new equipment to modernize, to keep up with competition. We've put 2 additions on our building, and we're done with additions, but we do need some new equipment to be more competitive. And the relief from the taxes would sure help us get to that point.
And this is the first thing you've asked for a 6B too, correct?
We have a 6B on the 2 additions we put on.
Okay.
This new program would go over the entire project.
Okay, so trustees, it's not a renewal. This is a new application on that particular parcel.
Correct.
Okay. And I did speak with the gentleman before the meeting, and as far as we were reminded recently, too, with any 6B participation, there's always the prevailing wage compliance as well, and they do meet that criteria as well. And then, again, trustees, while this is our approval, they still have to meet county criteria as well then, too. So, but we'll keep our building department abreast of what you're planning to do with the outline that you're going to submit to us and so forth then, too. So we'll stay on top of that as well then. When do you, and you were mentioning too, now this is actually going to create a few more jobs at your place too? Is that what you were saying?
We would hope in the next 10 years we would create up to 10 new positions in our company.
Okay, so like you said, it's more or less infrastructure and growth at this point to be more competitive with your competition
Right.
yet too. So, okay. Trustees, any questions? The gentleman, no? Okay. Thank you for your application, gentlemen, and we'll have that on the agenda next week, I assume.
Mayor, one more. Has it been 6 years that you've been, or 6 or 8 years for a trustee?
Feels like 8, but it's 6. Yeah, you know, so.
Time flies when you're having fun.
I know.
Right?
Let's call it fun, Brian. You know, so.
Thanks for having us tonight.
Thank you very much. Next report, Fire Committee, Trustee McLaurin.
I'm sorry. I have nothing further under finance. I'm sorry. We're in fire
Go-
department.
fire
Okay,
committee.
sorry. We have request for formal approval for hiring of the part-time secretary in the fire department. That's all I have.
Okay. Police report, Trustee McGrail.
I have the July monthly activity report, a list of bills and timesheets, and a request to purchase range filters to replace the prior ones that were damaged by the fire in the range. And the total cost replacement of the filters is $6,155.33, and that will be reimbursed by the insurance company. And lastly, a proposal for the lockup services at Oak Lawn, Village of Oak Lawn, and Chief Miller will distribute numbers to the board. I saw them, and I think they're excellent. I don't know if everyone else saw them.
Everyone should have got them in their email. Basically, it comes out to $100 a prisoner. And our 2016 numbers, we had 242 prisoners that stayed more than 3 hours in our lockup. So based on those estimates, it would be about $24,000 a year. Certainly cheaper than hiring another body or handful of part-timers. And they have their own facility. It's been up and running for years, so I'm not concerned about any risks or anything like that. So I think it's a good deal. If there's a consensus tonight that I can have them continue to talk with their board and draw up a contract for us, I'd like to do that, get things rolling. It'll be a separate contract from the dispatch.
Really? Separate contract for that, Chief? Why would that be, just so everybody knows?
This part has to go through their village board, and I'd like to keep it separate also. I'm in agreement with that just because there's a lot going on with dispatch, and the more things that are involved in that,
That's
the
fine.
muddier it gets.
And obviously, we're talking about the dispatch center versus the Oak Lawn Police Department then, too. So,
Correct.
gotcha. That's
Totally different personnel that would be involved and everything else.
understood. So $100 per prisoner, and again, based on the previous submittal that you had, there's a savings there of about $20-some thousand then, too?
Well, the difference in savings would be us hiring an additional clerk
Right.
or some type of person to watch the prisoners overnight versus contracting it out. So a clerk is about $50,000. This is $25,000, so you're looking at an estimated savings about $25,000.
How long would a contract like that go for?
Right.
Typically, I don't have the details on that, but we were talking 3 years. It would probably run concurrent with the dispatch contract, which would typically be 3 years.
Chief, could you get that in writing just so the trustees know what they're going to approve? I don't want to slow it up by a week, but I'm sure we can get it done by next one,
Yeah,
if that's the case.
Well, we're just approving starting
just
negotiations at this point.
just as long as
right?
you guys are okay with going that direction, that's all I kind of wanted to know was the general consensus, so I could have them start working on a contract. I didn't want to waste their time if that's not the route we're going to go, but I'd recommend going along that way.
If you're taking a prisoner, I guess that's the word, from instead of bringing him to our lockup and you're taking him to a different lockup, just the additional time of taking a patrolman off the street by taking him to another municipality, is it significant?
It's going to take about 20 minutes, for us to get there, unload him and all of that stuff, and then pick him up again, because if he's going to court, we have to take him to court. So that's one of the things that I didn't like about it, but given the financial strength of the village, I think this is the best way to go for now.
All right. Thank you.
What do you think, Chief? You've looked at this enough times. When you look at those numbers, we don't have any of those numbers in front of us. Obviously, are you in favor of this, or did you like your idea better with having the person here?
Well, it would entail more than one person because it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, unless you're going to be calling people in. When you're calling people in, that tends to be an unreliable thing. So you'd have to hire a full-time person for a night shift, and then you'd have to hire probably quite a few part-timers to cover weekends, days off, vacation, all that kind of stuff. I don't think it would be worth it.
Gotcha. And because the trustee brings up a good point, too. You're losing 45 minutes to an hour by dropping off a prisoner or picking them back up at the same time then, too. You put a value on that time, call it an hour, and on top of the $100 that we're paying for it. But I see what you're saying, though, too. It's kind of a no-brainer.
Well, there's definitely a value to it, but
Yeah.
It's not every day. I'd like you guys to revisit the services position. That was a civilian position that would put a cop full-time back out on the street
Right.
versus 20 minutes here and there.
That's what I'm
But
saying. I still like that idea as well, too. So,
That's separate from this, but we can reapproach that later.
and just so folks understand what we're saying here is this is all based around the the consolidation of our 911 service going to the Oak Lawn dispatch. And obviously right now the dispatchers on the overnight shifts and whatnot are responsible for watching monitors with prisoners, should we have any, and so forth then too. Otherwise, we wouldn't have anybody here without having to hire more help.
Correct.
There's a lot to this, though. You got
Right.
242 prisoners. If it's an hour per prisoner that you're losing in transport time, it's 242 hours over an entire year,
I get that, right.
which
Absolutely,
isn't
right.
a lot. The liability aspect of a detention facility is huge. So Oak Lawns already has that liability potential. They're going to increase it a little bit by 242 prisoners at present rate. So for that dollar amount, it's a
It's a bargain.
bargain.
Very good.
And it would take 5 people to staff one position 24/7.
So trustees,
24 grand.
oh, okay. So trustees, can we get a consensus for the chief to have them move forward with drafting a contract for us?
I'm fine.
We okay with that? All right.
Yes.
Thanks, chief.
Thank you.
Next up, Public Works and the boat launch at this. Trustee Juarez?
I have a list of bills, a list of timesheets, and the July monthly activity report. During the month of July, the Public Works Department performed multiple tasks within the village. For streets, 951.10 hours were pothole patching, street sweeping, street sign inventory replacement, National Night Out prep, miscellaneous work orders, performing general garage and equipment maintenance,
Administrative duties, 15.5 of those hours were worked overtime. Drainage, 394 total hours were televised storm sewers, doing sewer repairs, miscellaneous work orders, and tending to locates. Forestry, 700 total hours branch pickup, tree trimming, tree removal, pickup, storm damage, weed whip, and grass cutting. Sanitary, 282.1 total hours were spent televising sewers, miscellaneous work orders, sewer inspections, and tending to locates. 4.1 of these hours were worked overtime. For boat launch, 16 hours was spent replacing life preserver mounting, replacing picnic table, and painting money deposit box. 192 hours of vacation time were paid out to full-time employees. 68.2 hours of sick time were paid out to full-time employees. 16 hours of first quarter floating holiday. 88 hours of holiday time were paid out for 4th of July. 8 hours were paid out to each of the department's 11 full-time employees. 17 employees, total monthly hours, 2,707.40 hours. 56 hours of first quarter unused floating holiday paid out to employees.
Very good. Thanks, Trustee. Next, the Building Department, Trustee Zelinski.
Yes, Mayor, I got a list of bills, timesheets, a presentation of a request from FIM Stores, 4845 West 111th Street for a special tent sale in the parking lot of their location from August 14th to September 26th. I have a presentation of a request from the Village Sportsman's Club, 5201 West 115th Street, to host their annual pig roast on Saturday, September 9th, 2017, from noon to midnight. Another presentation of a request from a resident of 3432 West 123rd Place to install a 6-foot privacy fence, and a presentation of a request from the resident of 11620 Kaminsky Avenue to build an oversized garage. On number 5, I spoke with Roger early before the meeting. He went over some of the things that for the fence. He told me that there was no obstructions from the street view, but one of the neighbors on one of the sides of that particular residence may have obstructions backing out onto the street. So I don't know if we want to reconsider that or have him move that fence closer toward the house.
You know, I was familiar with this too. Roger showed me a picture, and just so we can kind of, unfortunately, we're not using our video like we could, but with the obstruction that he pointed out to me, Roger, if I was correct, was as you're backing out of your driveway, that because that fence got to the sidewalk, it's actually a blind spot. Correct. And you're backing onto, obviously you're backing onto a street, and you really can't see to one side and so forth then too. And occasionally these things happen. You'd hate to have a blind spot, and it looks like kind of every block is a main sidewalk as far as I'm concerned. So what's your best recommendation on that? You're the building commissioner there.
On the other side, have they addressed the issue with the double?
The double fence will be handled.
Okay.
My only concern is the neighbor pulling out of his driveway. From the street side, there's going to be no issue because he's farther back. It gives you full range. If you're coming up to the stop sign and looking to your right, looking to your left, there's no obstruction whatsoever. But the neighbor behind, if he pulls up in his driveway on the right side and backs out, he's going to have a blind spot for kids coming past. He will have some time to stop. I wouldn't say that I'm 100% comfortable with it. I would say it'd be okay.
I hate to set this guy up to fail, though.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and that's obviously that's everyone's feeling on something like that. Where right now he can see the sidewalk because of let's say he's looking through a chain link fence.
Well, right now it's a 4-foot chain link,
Yeah.
and we're talking about a 6-foot privacy.
And this is the house that we have in question on here. This is a corner house, correct?
Correct.
Right. So while we want to help this person, at the same time, we can't set that neighbor up to fail because it's our fault in the end.
Is that corner that he occupies a bus stop for any of the schools?
No, it is
And Roger, if we asked them to move the fence forward, let's say to get in line with the garage per se, how much distance is there between the sidewalk and the garage?
He wasn't willing to do that.
Okay.
We're talking about 18 feet
Oh, really? Okay.
with the garage.
So it's substantial.
Has he ever presented a bird's eye view of this? I'm looking at the pictures, but to be honest, if it's putting a 6-foot fence where the chain link fence is,
That's exactly what he wants to do.
yeah, I mean, by the time he's backing out, 12 foot of his car is already over the sidewalk before he can sit there and see that he ran over something.
Correct.
I tell you what, just for final consideration before the board, because we're going to have to vote on this next week, as the trustee asked for, can we get some type of a bird's eye view so we're looking down on this thing?
Or even if he looks at on the corner where that is on the drive, if he wants to set back a 45-degree angle, 8 foot on both sides of it to where it'll give him some additional reaction time.
I will go out and have a conversation with him tomorrow and have it. Have an email put out. to
That's right.
everybody.
This will be all.
Yeah. I mean, it's a permanent blind spot is the whole deal. It may be one thing to have a car or truck sitting there and you had to work around it a little bit, but for us to okay a variance, and that's the whole idea of a variance, let's be careful about what we do here. So thank you, Roger, for looking at that. Yeah.
And I'd also like to see a bird's eye for the oversized garage as well. If you could just sketch it on a piece of paper, that'd be great.
Well, and that's what I was going to ask for a consensus this evening so that we can get it moving along for the garage.
The garage I really don't have an issue with. I'd just like to see where it is in relation to that property, but it seems fine.
Were you able, did you look at the pictures?
I did.
Okay. I do have the paperwork in the back with the bird's eye view.
Oh, okay.
On the plot survey.
All right.
If you'd like me to go get it.
I'll see you afterwards. Thank you.
Trustees, Roger did say, too, that with regard to the number 5, I'm sorry, number 6, with the oversized garage, it is in compliance. You actually had him downsize that a little bit from the original. Yeah, too?
Whenever all the paperwork is in order, they are good to go. I dragged my feet a little bit, so I was hoping to get a consensus tonight so that I could get him moving along with his garage. He does not have a standing garage at this point. He's got a small slab. He's actually moving 20 feet from the fence line, 78 feet from the right side, and 18 feet off on the left-hand side. So,
Plenty of room.
And we had your office had a filing issue, which is why you're asking for a consensus. We've lost time on this project from when the residents submitted, so that's why Roger's asking if it'd be okay to get a consensus to move forward, even though we need to approve it next week. Would everyone be okay with that?
On the garage, yes.
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 Everybody okay? Great.
Just so it's
So
not tied
Roger,
to the fence.
then everyone gave consensus on the garage, not on the fence.
Right.
Okay, so we'll look at the fence next week.
thank you.
Okay. Next, sewer and water, trustee Dizal.
A presentation of the list of bills and the employee time records. That's all I have, Mayor.
License committee, trustee Juarez.
Have a list of license, or new business license. Sell natural products, distributor of rigid containers, retail tobacco, and cell phone retail and repair. That's all.
Okay.
That's all.
That's it? Okay. Economic development, trustee Pierce.
Wednesday morning, 9 a.m., we have a meeting with Oliveri Architects to continue discussions on the Pulaski facade concepts. And Chris Mannheim is here to give the brief update on the monthly economic development report.
Hi, Chris.
Good evening. Just a few updates from the report that you received in Friday's packets. RD Land Ventures, their parking lot's been approved by the inspectors, so it's ready for reimbursement. Checkers, as you see noted, also has fully executed RDA, and they're going to be looking for the first installment on their grant The Chernowski Strip Mall has executed its RDA, and I think we're waiting just on a couple of final signatures here within the village to execute their contract. Oh, there you are, Kent. I know you have to virtually eat this thing. I want to talk to you when we're done. Chernowski Strip Mall is moving ahead also. It's waiting on its RDA for a couple more signatures internally. Dr. Matthews and Studio K, they've executed their RDA, and we took care of a couple of final details on Friday. It's moving ahead. Alsip Lawnmower, which was the first one we approved back in April, I think. They have all the permits, and he's just waiting for scheduling right now with his contractor to pave his lot. We have a couple of other applicants that are active right now, and we'll be coming back to then. Mike, I'll check with you on what dates you may want available for the EDC committee. A couple other notes. As Mike mentioned, we're meeting with Don Oliveri for an update on Wednesday. Wednesday morning at 9. And also tying back in that, we met with the EDC back on July 10th. And reviewed the draft facade guidelines. And as the mayor mentioned earlier, the property assemblies are proceeding. Some other activities, we completed our budget with the finance department a few weeks ago. We've also participated in the August ICSC Retail Connection Workshop, and Roger Hopkins identified some additional retail and service businesses concerning expansion in the Chicago area. But there again, keep in mind too that the retail markets are really in a downturn at this point because of the change in the marketplace with the use of online services and whatever. So we're not seeing a lot of the big boxes and the like, which we wouldn't necessarily be concerned with anyway for Pulaski. But there is the whole marketplace is changing at this time. And that ties into our preparations that are ongoing right now. Roger and I are working on putting together materials for the ICSC Chicago Deal-Making event, which is now September 27th and 28th. And we'll probably be talking also with South Suburban Mayor's Managers Association about what their plans are, too. In fact, I think they've got a meeting this Friday. So that's all I have to report at this time.
Thanks, Chris.
I just wanted to thank Erica for the amount of help she's been given. It's not easy, especially pulling people together from trustees to the Mannheim group to Mary and everybody, and just trying to get these meetings coordinated. Just fabulous job.
Chris, I was going to ask too. Is that something? I did send something back over to your office last week about. We said let's start putting up the for sale signage on those properties. Is that something that you folks are handling, or did you need us to do that?
Let me check check with Roger Hopkins and see how that should be handled.
Okay.
As Mike's pointing out, and the like, we're inventing all new procedures that we haven't had to deal with the village before.
I get
so
it.
these are good problems to have.
I've seen, and trustees,
I'll make that note.
I've seen some good-looking signs with folks in other villages. I was actually in Glenwood yesterday, and there's some nice eye catchers here and there. Some that village-owned property and so forth. It's something that people want to take advantage of, should they be interested in development.
Right.
So.
And you're talking about in addition to whatever the brokers might be doing, whoever we hire. Got it.
Right.
Okay, I'll make a note of that, and with something else we can talk about Wednesday morning.
Okay.
Okay.
Next, Planning and Zoning, Trustee Zelinski.
I put on the agenda today to discuss the ordinance rezoning the property located at 4735 West 122nd Street from an R1 residence district to a B1 business district, and granting a special use for the sale of used cars. The Planning and Zoning Committee agreed to this at a 5-1. We were discussing before the last time we were at the meeting, there was cars in the driveway, and this past Friday I came by again, and there was also cars unstickered and unplated in the driveway. That ordinance that we had, I wanted to amend the ordinance to include on Part D, where it says vehicles except for temporary customer parking shall not be parked on the public street or the public parkway. I would like to add, or the driveway, including the driveway, to that ordinance as well.
For cars for sale is what you're referring to, right?
Yes, there should be no cars for sale in that driveway. It should be for customer parking only or for the owner of the property.
Exactly, and I think that's, you and I were looking at that, and as it says in there, the only time that you should have cars in that driveway are for temporary usage of a customer to be in there. And then I did, trustee, after you and I met, I did speak to the chief. He took care of that. He had one of our guys speak to the owner to let him know that's what our intentions are, is to keep those cars off that property, especially now, but yet when they're not plated or tagged, to keep them in the lot.
The gentleman's here tonight?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. I also had a concern going over and looking at the property. I know he's trying to make more room on the one property by destroying the building and adding more spaces for other used cars.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that in the back of this particular property, there's a large backyard. I just wanted to make sure that you also had a couple of dumpsters on the property. I would hate to...
Come on, Mr. Syed.
I would hate to see those dumpsters end up in the backyard of the property itself because, you know, it is a neighborhood. There's residential there, so if that could stay on that, your current property. And other than amending the ordinance, I have no problem with this.
So Syed, what he was saying was just as far as using that driveway for any use, what the ordinance says under special uses, you can use it for a customer to use the driveway to pull their car in there temporarily to conduct the business, and that's it. But please don't have cars for sale sitting in your driveway then, too, okay? That's the whole idea of having a yard, okay? Yeah, and again, we're here to help. You know, we're not here to hurt. You know, you've got a viable business there, and again, you've gone through all the procedures here of meeting with planning and zoning, and obviously that's the prerequisite to getting to us. They made the recommendation in favor of doing this for you, and again, in the interest of, because I did have a couple of your neighbors that had some concerns. They don't want their neighbor to turn into a business. That's the whole idea of a residential zoning thing. So, I mean, should this pass next week, if the board passes this action next week for you then too, please, that's all we ask, is just abide by the rule for that, okay?
But my concern here is that once we grant a B1,
Mm-hmm.
then all these things that are caveats are out the window. It's B1, it's business, and anything can be done. So if this gentleman or somebody else who follows behind decides they're going to level the house and start putting in vehicles for sale, lighting up that area, whatever, how do you stop it because it has the proper zoning? So it's a residential neighborhood. It's set that way, and I think it's wholly unfair to the neighbors to sit there and allow further encroachment of a B1 into what's identified and is a residential neighborhood.
Trustee Zelinski, did we go to legal with this at all too, as far as the rezoning? Did we speak with the Kankar Law Firm on this at all too yet, or no?
I don't believe so. We were just going over the ordinance itself and the wording.
Okay. Trustee Delzai makes a great point. And, it's like, as you said, whether it's you or anybody else that follows you, once that gets rezoned as a business as opposed to a residence, it's like, as they say, that the cow's out of the barn. Anything can happen. Just let's say, for instance, the way you light up a commercial lot with lighting and so forth, that almost could be subject to the same thing on that house, because there's nothing there to protect the residents around there to say that anything changes about that house. Now, I mean, in other words, let's just say we'd have your word for it, but when that gets rezoned, it's anything can happen.
There's no resident next to me. There's church. They were in the first meeting. They were for it. They want that building to go out because nobody could see the church.
Right.
And next to me that's the house belonged to my sister.
Right. No. I'm not challenging that.
It's not like I'm messing up.
Oh no, Syed, I'm not challenging that at all. What I'm saying is, what the trustee was pointing out is, whether it's you or anybody else, once that gets rezoned, it's like, it's just a field day, and many things can happen to that property as far as making it look commercial, because we allowed that to happen. So again, we're not here to hurt you, we're trying to look out for the best interest of the neighborhood, but we might have to introduce maybe a little more restriction to say that nothing can change on that property. I mean, although it's being rezoned. In other words, this might be something where we need to defer to our attorney just to get just a little more guidance on this thing yet, too, before we approve it. So I hate to slow you down, but again, we're trying to do our due diligence here yet, too, okay? Can we do that, trustee? Let's get that over and see if that's even possible to do.
And too many times, and I'm not doubting the validity of the applicant in this process, but we've had other businesses come in and said that they're going to do good things. And they did for 3 months or 6 months, and then it went by the wayside. So we as a board, allowed for 3 months a person to park vehicles on a property, and that became 9 months or a year. And
he's talking about somebody else.
Yeah. And you know, we've had other instances where they're going to do a porous property parking lot and set up nice berms and everything else, and that went by the wayside. So I'm just fearful that we're going to do one thing, and then all of a sudden what's presently a grassy backyard of a residential lot is going to become a paved area to store additional cars, because that's what your business is.
Right.
And if it was in a business district already, I'd have no problem with it whatsoever.
So obviously we're trying to preserve the neighborhood is the whole thing. So,
Actually, I thought I'm doing a favor to the city to get rid of that house myself. And for safety issue, it's a good thing that house to be gone, because it's much safer. Everybody can see it right in the corner. And I have no problem. I could rent the house. You know, it's not a. I was doing both of us.
I get you. And again, you're not really utilizing maybe that house like you'd like to anyway, so why have it? I understand. Right.
My concern with this, though, is the fact that at this point in time, there's still two separate lots. It's not being conjoined to be turned into one large lot for the business. So the house would be a lot all by itself, separate from the car lot. And so I have an issue then with demolishing the building that's on the car lot, and now you've got a lot with no facilities, no nothing, which then could turn around and be sold, and we'd have no recourse. And
well, and then we're back to the drawing board on going back to rezoning that from a B1 back to an R1 all over again then too. So you're talking about the house now, right?
The house or the business.
Yeah.
I mean, because once the existing building at the corner of 122nd and Cicero, if he's talking about demolishing that, now you have just a vacant car lot with no facilities on it whatsoever, which could turn around and be separated off without. I mean, and then we have another issue going on with another property where it was subdivided. And now there's no proper plumbing, no proper hookups.
Oh, I know what you mean. I know that business, right.
So I because of this staying two separate lots is where I have an issue with it.
Okay. And do you understand, Sarah, what she's saying? Did you take down that house that being utilized as an office now? Now you just have an empty lot with nothing, and should somebody else want that lot, say you want to do something else for a living, somebody else wants to buy that lot, and there's no office there, obviously they're starting from scratch.
Actually, our aim was to sell the whole corner.
Yeah.
We had a client, and my son got sick, so we didn't go through it. They were just going to buy the whole corner, Julian and everybody else. And actually, they were going to make a gas station, which is going to be more light than...
I remember hearing about that, right.
More light than what I have right there. I'm sure you guys will go for it anyway, because it's a big gas station. The whole corner is supposed to be
Another gas
and then now, another opportunity like this comes, everything is for sale.
Yeah. And again, as the trustee pointed out, we're just concerned with changing what was a nice, let's say, residential neighborhood we're allowing business to come in there. And let's just say, for any reason, you had to move or whatever in the next couple of years, we're really starting all over again to try and get somebody in there, because now people are looking at a piece of business property, not a residential property anymore. And it changes the complexion of everything, is what I'm saying. So let's see if there's any. I know planning and zoning was in favor of. I get that, and they made the recommendation to say yes. But that's why they make a recommendation to us. Is we need to look at as they should have too. Is we need to look at the whole picture to see if this is not the best interest of the residents and the village. You're on a main street. We appreciate your business being where it is, but if we change the complexion of that residential neighborhood to call it a business corner right there, it just changes the whole demographic a little bit, because again, if anything changes in your life, then we're holding a piece of property we might not even be able to get rid of right away because we have to rezone it and everything else. We're going through a lot of actions unnecessarily. So I appreciate what you're trying to do, but as the trustee pointed out over here, without an office on that property, and I know what you just said too. I mean, and I'm hearing you, that by taking that ugly house down, it's helping the complexion of that corner. I get that. But there's another side of me that says, man, I wish for just a small office instead of a big one and stuff then too, and not change any of this and stuff then too. So
I got a special use to use that building for business before for almost 15 years. I never had any problem with city, with police, so I've been keeping my word. Because I got a special use. I've been doing business there for almost 15 years.
But you get a special use on the residence now, on the corner house, not that big house at where the street on the Cicero Avenue. You didn't need a special use for that, did you, or did you?
Yes, I did.
Okay, but now we're talking about the house behind you.
Saying I already passed my test.
Yeah, no, but that was a whole different house. That's why it's a concern to us. I mean, if we change this whole thing, we have to live with this. So please understand, please be patient with us. We hate to hold you up anymore, but we're going to have to defer to our attorneys. I'll do it myself. I'll reach out to them. I'm actually going to see them tomorrow, but let me talk, and you know what? We've got your information. We can give you a call during the week. Let me talk to you about this, okay? All right.
Could you please sign in? Thank you so much, sir.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Anything else? Okay. I am. I'm going to speak with Vince Kankar tomorrow, and that's his specialty, really, is zoning and whatnot. Let me explain to him what the situation is, and I'll get back with all the trustees. I'll get you something this week, okay? And Trustee Dalzell, I appreciate that too, because that, as you said, Rick, is sometimes when you change the complexion of something like this, the cat's out of the barn, the horse is out of the barn, whatever. So we can be opening ourselves up to something that we can't fix, and we don't want to change the complexion of that neighborhood, period. So thank you, Syed.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Sure. Special committee reports, village properties. Trustee McLaurin.
Yes, I have a request for approval of an expenditure in the amount of $30,700 for advanced wiring solutions to install access control panels at 14 doors located throughout the Village Hall, Fire Station 1, and Fire Station 2.
Are we required to do anything with a bid process or an RFP for this dollar amount?
This was IMRF grant money.
We're still spending it.
Yeah, anything over $20,000, we're supposed to get 3 quotes on, so it wouldn't hurt as the trustee Dalzell said, to get a couple of quotes on this.
We've already got a system in place and that's why we went with a single bid or single bidder. At this time, we're already utilizing this system. We're just adding on to it.
So if it's a sole source, then I get that, but just want to make sure.
Were they the current provider?
Yes, they are.
Okay, well, we didn't know.
That's all I have.
Okay. Insurance Committee, Trustee McGrail.
No report.
Ordinance to legislation, Trustee Pierce.
Yes, we have, again, the request for approval of ordinance enacting Article 23, Human Resource Manager of the Municipal Code for the Village of Alsip, Illinois. The legal opinion from last week is that if this did not require a motion to reconsider, as there was no prevailing action as a result of the vote. it can just be put right back onto the agenda because of the fact that it did have a motion and a second.
Okay, so you're going to have this on for next week? Okay. IT, Trustee Dalzell?
No report.
You know, Trustee, I didn't get a chance to speak to you right before the meeting to see when I finished up my regular day. I had a conversation with Brian Massari, our IT manager, and just so everybody knows, unless you're looking at it, the sign at Veteran Plaza is off right now. Sign broke down, and he's actually getting me a quote for repairs versus replacement. And we did check today. That is a TIF eligible expense. Should we decide to utilize that on Pulaski Avenue at the same time? So I'll have something next week to share with the board as far as whether or not we want to reenact that sign. I think it's always been a great way to communicate with the neighborhood over there, with the village itself. But I'm going to present something of repairs versus replacement, and let the board decide if we want to spend that money to do so. And again, that is a TIF eligible expense. Next, Human Resources, Trustee McGrail.
I'll have a presentation of the committee meeting from last week, August 7th, and that's all that I have. And I gave a copy of the minutes to everyone tonight.
Yeah. Health and Pollution, Trustee Pierce.
I just request everybody take a look at Chief Miller's July report for the July's health inspections and report.
Traffic Safety, Trustee Dalzell.
No report, Mayor.
Any presentations, petitions, or communications? None this evening. Any unfinished business? Any new business? All right, we had a closed session on the agenda called by Clerk Petzel. Do you want to read that off?
Sure. Request to go into closed session, the discussion to discuss the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity pursuant to 5 ILCS 120/2C1.
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Pierce, thank you.
Second.
Trustee McGreal, second. Roll call number 1 to go into closed session. Trustee McGreal?
Yes.
Trustee Dalzell?
Yes.
Trustee Pierce?
Yes.
Trustee Zelinski?
Yes.
Trustee Juarez?
Yes.
Trustee McLaughlin?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, that'll conclude this part of the meeting. We're going to go into recess, folks, for a discussion in closed session. Nothing else. At committee, we don't vote anything anyway, but we're not going to be voting.